Alright guys, what's going on? It's Jack and welcome back to another video. In this one I wanted to give my first impressions of the Call of Duty Vanguard multiplayer, as well as telling you some positives and negatives about the game and just my overall thoughts on everything and opinions, because I have been playing Call of Duty for over 10 years now. I've been making content on it for over 6, so I just wanted to give my overall outlook on everything, my opinions, thoughts, and all that kind of stuff. And I'm obviously coming from a real place. I am not sponsored by Activision. I'm not one of those guys. I've always been keeping it real, and I will continue to do so on this channel regardless of how many likes or dislikes I get, subs, etc., etc. So I'm going to lay it all out here on the table. And overall, pretty much this game, I have a lot of mixed feelings about this game, which I'll be talking about. And because when you look at this game, and when you're an experienced Call of Duty veteran and playing the game, and you start to see the similarities and differences and comparisons between all the previous Call of Duty games and the one that we currently have, it's very easy, at least in my opinion, to see the amount of potential that this game specifically has. Because when you look at it, when you compare it to the best-selling Call of Duty of all time, which is, believe it or not, Modern Warfare 2019, if you see this game and you play it and you see what they're doing in the subtle differences and yet similarities between those two games, it's like Sledgehammer Games basically said, okay, what we're going to do is we're going to take the best aspects of the best-selling Call of Duty ever, which is Modern Warfare 2019, which is also very recent, so it kind of complements them and the amount of time that they have and development and all that kind of stuff, right? And to cut and paste a few things here and there. And what we're going to do is we're going to basically omit a few things, or just kind of put in the things that a few of the fans requested, such as, for instance, the game will be faster paced, we'll add in dead silence, or ninja in this case, as a perk, and etc., 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 right? But overall, I am more than open to say that in some aspects they've failed, in some aspects they've certainly succeeded. And another thing I want to say is that when this game runs like it's supposed to run, like when it plays smooth, it plays smooth. In other words, when the hit detection is spot on, and when the connection is good and stuff like that, or like let's say you also run into a quote-unquote magic lobby. Now, it doesn't have to be like a quote-unquote magic lobby. It could just be like a good lobby, to where the skill-based matchmaking or engagement optimization matchmaking, which are pretty much, whenever I mention skill-based matchmaking, let's just say it's SBMM and DOMM, because they're both in the game and they have been for the last few years with COD. When that's not kicking in really hard, the game is a hell of a lot more enjoyable because it runs smoother. The gameplay is smoother, the hit detection works a lot more like it's supposed to and stuff like that. And at the same time, a few of the things that they've added into the game I'm not a big fan of. Like, obviously it's been revealed that Bloom is in the game now, which affects your bullet accuracy. So that in and of itself really does not belong in a Call of Duty title. And another thing that they've kept from Modern Warfare 2019 that I wish that they had gotten rid of, or at least changed from Modern Warfare 2019, believe it or not, and is the maps. The maps are quite large. The majority of the maps, the vast majority of the maps actually, are quite large. There's lines of sight and head glitches all over the place, and on top of that, the time to kill is really fast as well, similar to Modern Warfare 2019, if not slightly faster. And you combine all those things together, it's like, yeah, no wonder people are sitting behind a head glitch, and there's tons of them in this game, tons of safe spaces, huge maps, and all these safe spaces also cover all different angles of the map, so it's a huger risk than normal to run around in the game, which is not a good idea in my opinion, especially if you're a rusher. And on top of that, you got spawns that need work that also kind of has an impact on that as well. So again, but when you look at the entirety of everything in terms of what Sledgehammer Games is trying to do, as well as the amount of feedback that they've been taking into effect since beta or whatnot, it still is very reasonable to suspect that this game has a chance and high hopes of becoming a really solid Call of Duty within a certain specific period of time after the game itself gets polished a little bit more. Because as time goes on, you guys know how Call of Duty works. When it gets released, it's in a certain state, and obviously as time goes on, by the time it reaches halfway to the end of its development life cycle, it's polished enough to where it almost plays and seems like a different game than it was on launch, and it is a much more improved game than we originally got on launch. And on top of that, there's also going to be additional content coming out, such as maps and game modes and stuff like that. And if there's any developer that I think is going to accommodate for some of these things that a player like myself and others like me that disagree with, like the map design, a couple of the other things that really didn't belong into the game, such as Bloom as well, they are the development studio that can actually do something about that. So in terms of game modes, again, they can pull a Cold War at what they did with Cold War, right? And they can cut a map to a certain size and do a beautiful 3v3 face-off. Simple as that. And then if you have Assault and Blitz for that mode, you can have a 4v4 or a 5v5. You guys know how it works. And as well as bringing back older game modes, because if you can cut and paste a percentage of a previous Call of Duty into the game, what's wrong with putting in a game mode that is very popular with the community? And Sledgehammer Games so far, in terms of them being the developers, they have shown that they really care in terms of what the community thinks. Now, obviously, there are members of the community that enjoy a different type of Call of Duty experience, so to speak. Now, also simultaneously with the design of this game, I wouldn't be surprised if Activision says, no, you got to make these maps even bigger than what you intended, and you got to put even more safe spaces and stuff like that, and more windows and doors. And by the way, there are windows and doors and a shit ton of them in this game, which don't really need to be in this game, to be honest. But I wouldn't be surprised if Activision actually told them to do that if their design in terms of the maps was different. Because, again, Battle Royale, aka Warzone at this point, is extremely popular and is the majority of their focus, right? And it generates the most money, whether you like to admit that or not. So what they did, if you think about it in this game, which makes total sense, is they seem to be taking the philosophy of shrinking down the Warzone experience to something slightly smaller, like what we're getting with these maps that when you compare them to traditional Call of Duty size maps, are quite larger, quite larger. And as well as the design of the maps themselves in terms of what's in them and what's not in them, right? So basically what they did was they shrank Warzone, they added in respawn, so you can always respawn, right? But everything else from a gameplay perspective in terms of the pacing, the amount of safe spaces, windows, doors, and stuff like that, all remains. So basically what you're getting in multiplayer now, in a vast majority of the modes, is a different version of Warzone, a slightly faster paced one or whatnot. And don't forget, with Warzone, they can change it to where it could be just like what we have right now with Vanguard, and they can add in respawns in different game modes and stuff like that if they wanted to. So it's not just about adding in a new map, it's also about adding in new game modes to Warzone as well. So, and the more type of players that they appeal to, the better, because they want more people playing Warzone. Sure, they want them to buy the Call of Duty Vanguard multiplayer, but the majority of the focus is on Warzone. They already said it themselves. So when you think about it, it absolutely makes sense that these maps are the size that they are. It absolutely makes sense that they play the way they play. But I will say this, though. With a few changes here and there, especially with the maps. Obviously, they can't do anything about the maps, but they can give us new maps that are a lot different or whatnot. I mean, think Call of Duty Ghosts DLC. Call of Duty Ghosts DLC, Call of Duty Ghosts, first of all, from a multiplayer perspective, is very hated. Now, competitive might be a little different, but in terms of multiplayer, regular pubs multiplayer, it's one of the most disliked CODs, right? However, when you look at the DLC in terms of what Infinity Ward did, it is by far one of the best, if not the best, DLC Call of Duty for pubs ever in terms of what they did. They added in Predator, Michael Myers. The maps themselves were an improvement in terms of DLC maps. They did a shit ton of things with Ghosts. So you got to give them credit. Now, granted, that was Infinity Ward, but at the same time, all it really takes is a passionate team that listens, a passionate team of developers that actually listens to community feedback. And so far, Sledgehammer Games appears to be willing to take that on. So when you look at it from every perspective, no matter what kind of player you are when it comes to Call of Duty, there's potential to be had here. However, you cannot deny the fact that there's Activision, skill-based matchmaking, engagement optimization matchmaking, and money that is the number one thing. And of course, you've got some other content creators as well that no matter how much, how it makes them look, they will defend the game. And then you've also got a few people out there that are going to be hated, whether they're right or wrong, you know, and whether they praise the game or not. So it's a mixed bag when it comes to the Call of Duty community at this point. But overall, at this point right now, I will say that Call of Duty Vanguard is a game with a good amount of potential that unfortunately is basically being held back by the biggest thing being the map design. The map design and obviously the implementation of bloom is another thing that I'm not too crazy about. It does not belong in Call of Duty. Your bullets need to go where they need to go. It's simple as that. So obviously you can use anything that gives you a plus on your attachments when you create a class. Not recoil, but I'm sorry, not attachments. Accuracy. Whatever increases your accuracy, not recoil or recoil control. We're talking accuracy. That can help mitigate it according to Exclusive Ace. But the fact that it exists in the game is another thing. It's like it doesn't need to be in there in the first place, but they just added it in to kind of create new changes and shit, and obviously nerf the good players, because that's why skill-based matchmaking is implemented as well. So again, I wouldn't be surprised if bloom was a thing from Activision themselves. Activision is behind the skill-based matchmaking, engagement optimization matchmaking, which is why they hired Demonware to do so. So basically, I wouldn't be surprised if bloom was a part of that, to where it ends up working that way. Again, I could be wrong in that aspect, but in terms of the Activision thing and Demonware thing, I know for a fact that I'm correct about that. So when you look at it, mixed bag of mixed opinions with this game. However, time will tell how successful it's going to be in terms of reaching its potential. In this game, trust me when I tell you, it does have potential. There are little bits and pieces of this game that are absolutely positively fabulous, a whole bunch of little things that when you add them all up, it's significant, which is one of the reasons why I think a lot of the community that is at least honest, the honest part of the community, that's why they're also very divided about this game, because it's like I like this, but, or I dislike this, but, you know. So for me personally, the game would be significantly more enjoyable if the maps were better, and if bloom did not exist, and if obviously engagement optimization matchmaking or skill-based matchmaking did not exist. But even if engagement optimization matchmaking and skill-based matchmaking did exist, if the maps themselves were better, if the spawns were improved, and if bloom was taken out and the visibility was improved, this game would be a hell of a lot better than what it is currently at its current state. And even at its current state, when you play this game, I mean, I've heard mixed things about a few PC versions of the game or whatnot, or for the PC version of the game. But when you play this game, at least in my experience, and I play on Xbox Series X, the game runs smoothly. And for me as a first-person shooter fan, I appreciate that. I love it whenever the game does run at its optimal pace. Now, granted, there's times when the hit detection is off, but that's because of the SBMM, and of course the bloom as well implemented in there. But when you look at, for instance, the connection and hit detection or whatnot, with my experience, it's been smooth, and the frame rate is consistent. So if they fix a handful of those things, even if they keep skill-based matchmaking in, the game itself is fire. And for a lot of people that actually enjoy what I would like to call the smaller version of how Warzone plays, and these kind of style of maps, to where there are a ton of sightlines, a ton of safe spaces, and a ton of these things like that, because everybody enjoys different flavors, and some people enjoy multiple flavors. But with that being said, I think for every single player out there, if those handful of changes that I mentioned in this video are implemented, again, it's going to be a solid year for the Call of Duty community. But it's cursed with a handful of problems. And for me, in my opinion, the map design is a big one. And then the other little things are obviously, like I mentioned before, the spawns, the bloom, and the visibility. Okay, and there might be one or two little tiny things, but, you know, so, and obviously if you have a point streak system, that'd be even better. But again, Sledgehammer Games is developing it. We'll see what they do. I'm cautiously optimistic, but let's just hope things change for the better. We can't get rid of skill-based matchmaking, engagement optimization matchmaking, but we can improve the game, especially within the season content and with these kind of developers of Sledgehammer Games that seem that they're very adamant in doing so. But that's all I got for this one, guys. Let me know down in the comment section what you think and what your experience is. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I'll catch you guys on the next one.